Well, I think the problem is that we may have very positive growth overall, but we might continue to see this growing inequality where wages are going up at a tepid rate compared to profits and wealth, so that people are not going to be happy in general. So that's certainly not quality growth. I think the kind of growth we had in the 50s and 60s, where everyone was benefiting, is a lot more positive growth. Now, the idea has been espoused by many people as well. If you can get the economy to grow, then we can fix everything else. But we do live in this extraordinary period where, because of the nature of new technology, to some extent globalization, it's just putting a lot of downward pressure on workers' shares. So growth is good, but you have to use some of that money to benefit everyone and not just a few.
And do you think that's sort of an economic reality that we are just eventually, I mean, people are starting to have fairly serious conversations in some circles about universal basic income and some of the profit sharing methods that you mentioned. Do you think that is just an economic reality?
I think it is an economic reality, at least, in the world we seem to be living in now. The idea of universal basic incomes, by the way, is an old one that my professor, who is a very liberal economist, James Tobin at Yale, he espoused what he called it negative income tax. It's the same thing. Low income people, you give money instead of taxing them. And actually, the very conservative economists, the late Milton Friedman, also espoused the same idea. I think it's a very good one. Americans have trouble relating to it. They say they don't want handouts. You have to find checks and balances. There's a question of whether it's better to provide free services like medical care, food stamps, as opposed to income. But absolutely, we have to go in that direction as long as there's this downward pressure on wages to make the middle class, and I'm not just talking about poor people, but to make the middle class feeling like they're getting something out of the deal.